everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Qorent Xperts podcast. My name is Tolulope Oga, your host, and it is always a pleasure to host you guys on every episode. Thank you for the comments, the feedback. They always ginger us to want to come time and time again on every episode to offer value to you guys. You are the real MVP. As you already know, Qorent Xperts is a platform, is a podcast created by Qorent for Qorent, where we come to discuss key and important topics as it pertains to the financial ecosystem in Nigeria, in Africa, and around the world. Today's episode, we're going to be considering the topic from raw data to real value, the data science journey at Qore. Data is fast becoming a buzzword, and as you already know, at Qore, we hire the top 1% of the 1%, so you're guaranteed subject matter specialization on any topic that we come to discuss here on the podcast. With me here today, I have the amazing Moshood Adekunjo, a leading data and AI expert. Moshood happens to be our manager data science here at Qore, and before I welcome Moshood, you already know the drill. I'm going to be reading his bio before we give him a rousing applause. Moshood Adekunjo is a leading data and AI expert with a track record of delivering high-impact data, machine learning, and AI solutions in the banking and technology sector. He currently leads the AI-powered banking initiative at Qore Technologies and has previously driven major data science projects across various industries and organizations. Moshood is passionate about using data and AI to solve complex business problems. His expertise spans the full data lifecycle, from data engineering and analytics to scalable model development and ML ops, enabling businesses to make smarter decisions, optimize operations, and unlock new revenue opportunities. Known for bridging technical innovations with business impact, Moshood consistently delivers AI solutions that transforms customer experience and drives organizational growth. Everyone, with a rousing applause, welcome with me the amazing Moshood Adekunjo. Woo! Hi, Moshood.
Thank you very much, Toby. Thank you. Thanks for having me on this edition of the podcast.
Thank you for agreeing to do this. You know that Qore people are busy men and women. They're really, really difficult to catch. I'm super grateful for your time and the opportunity to do this as well. How are you doing today?
I'm fine today. How about you?
Awesome. I'm doing good. So before we get right into the whole talking about data and what have you, can you tell me one fun thing that you do it can be more than one, that you do to just relax, have a good time?
Okay. I play games and I watch sports. I watch football games, football matches and basketball matches. So those are the fun things that I do time to time when I'm not working. So it's
amazing. So what's your current, maybe if it has changed before, what's your current favorite football team?
Yeah, I'm still a fan, but I don't watch that much games any longer. But yeah, Chelsea is my favorite team. Another team I like again is Real Madrid. So those are the two teams that I try to follow time to time.
Amazing. Up Chelsea. I'm not a football fan by the way, but just saying, I follow here and there when I'm able to. Maybe one of these days I would develop interest in it. Who knows? But till then. Okay, so we're gonna get right into the crux of today's discussion. So we had not always had like a data science department that was solely focused on data science. We are big on data at Qore, but as a key part and integral part to the data science journey at Qore. What would you say inspired Qore to invest in start building in a data science capability?
Okay. So I think majorly this has to do with companies' vision and focus. So the company's focus and vision over the years has largely been to digitize financial operations, banking operations, and things like that. And the way the world has shifted, the world has what it means to digitize operations have shifted from what it used to be probably 20 years ago to now. So an example of that is, for example, a few years ago, digitizing banking operations was to move away from paper and pen to probably Excel or to just some operations that can just keep things away from being manually done. But now it has moved to digitizing things now as a need of building intelligence into these systems. So Qore's vision aligns with that, and Qore's next steps are to build intelligence into our systems, and that is why the company has decided to build data science capability. So over the years, we've served many organizations, many businesses. We have Qorent Xperts in the industry, and we have a lot of things we could leverage on. We have data that span many years. So with the advent of AI and the new capabilities that we have, it is only right for Qore to tap into that potential. There's a lot of upside there, and the business is looking at building intelligence into our existing systems, because we basically see AI more like an enabling layer where the things we are already doing, we can do it better if we build intelligence into them. So that is what inspired Qore to invest into building a data science team and building data science capability across the organization.
Amazing. So I would like for the privilege of people who will be listening to the podcast who don't necessarily understand the lingo in terms of data science. Can you explain in simple terms what you mean by intelligence and just give practical examples as much as you can?
Okay, so a simple way to look at building intelligence into products is, for example, you interact with a system day to day, and you go there and the system, you have to interact with it day to day the same way. Usually, that's the way systems used to be. It used to just be direct information retrieval. But now systems are personalized. So what I mean, for example, some examples I can give is now generalized is these different streaming platforms that we have: Spotify, YouTube, Netflix. When you first get started on the platform, you choose your preferences. And over time, the system will keep pushing some things to you that aligns with your preference. Also, as you also engage with those things, it also uses your engagement, your behaviors on those platforms to introduce new things to you that you might like. And more often than not, you will like most of those things. So that is an example of personalizing the system. A system without intelligence, you will just go to, let's say you go to Netflix, you will have to it will probably just list out all the movies in probably alphabetical order for you to pick. But with intelligence built into it, when you go there today, what you see is these are handpicked for you. People who look like you are watching this. If you watched the previous movie before, it will tell you, because you watched this, you should like this. Those are forms of intelligence, because it has used your preferences over time, your activities on that platform over time. It has used it to build intelligence. So bringing it home to the financial service space, if let's say you bank with an organization, you've been banking with them for a couple of years, you have salary accounts with them, you have different things that you've done with them. An organization that builds intelligence to a system should be able to use that data to recommend specific products for you. So, for example, if you perform certain amount of transactions they should probably be able to, there should be an intelligence system that should be able to pre-qualify you for things like probably credits, cards, or even salary or payday loans or things like that. So that's a common example of building intelligence into financial products. Some more advanced examples are like introducing financial advisory, for example, using customer behavior, what customer is doing. Intelligent systems might be able to advise you on some type of transactions you are doing, and so on and so forth. So on the organizational perspective, is intelligence into systems would also reduce man hours compared to non-intelligent systems. So those are just common examples and advantages of like having intelligence or developing personalized solutions and so on.
Awesome. So the system is not just storing the data for fun, it is storing the data to be able to process it in a way that helps you or the user of the data in that sense make a decision at the end of the day. Awesome.
Exactly.
So I love this particular example that you've given because it sort of leads to my next question. How does Qore, and as an expert in this field, how would you say Qore and financial institutions, fintechs, how can we go from raw data to real business value that impacts our customers or clients?
So I think the first thing is to look at it like from the value perspective. So you need to first look at the value you're trying to provide to the business, to your customers. So whatever organization it is. So when you identify the values you like to provide to the customers, it guides into like what kind of data do we need from these customers. If we don't have this data, let's start looking for ways to have this data. If we have this data, are we structuring those data in a way that it can fulfill this need, or you're able to derive this value? So using some of the examples that I have mentioned before. So one of the ways organizations do it typically is the first stage is once you identify the value that you can derive from taking care of your data. I like to use the word taking care because taking care of the data means a lot of things. It means you don't just leave it laying idle. It means you do some things, you lay a lot of things on it, and it becomes a part of what you do day-to-day in your organization. So in that instance, what organizations typically do is they find a way to take the raw data that is generated from every user, find a way to build it into formats that are meaningful. So example of this would be and this is universal, this is standard approach across industries, countries, and even with different company sizes as well. So the first thing is to have like a data bank or data repository, which in technical terms is usually referred to as the data warehouse or a data lake. These are places where you move the data away from the source systems, because more often than not, you are not able to use the data in source systems directly because it will impact some other things that needs to use those data. So you move it into a separate environment. Now you can now sit down with the data, try and understand the data, then you can build it into format that it can achieve the things that you need. So an example of this would be if you move customer transaction data, for example, you move customer demographic data and things like that. In the raw format where it is just line by line, record by record, it will be very difficult for non-technical people to come there and make any sense of it. So it is now the job of like a data professional, data practitioner, like a data engineer from this instance, to now build those data into format that can make meaning to probably medium to non-technical users. So an example of this would be, you take a customer, for example, you build data maps around their activities, their demographics, around things that will make sense, or the things that a marketing person can use it for, or things that a product person can use it for, or something that probably a business person can use it for. So in that instance now, so the first step is to take the data, move it into a separate repository. Once you have the data in a separate repository, which can be there are a lot of platforms that can be leveraged for that. Then this data is now transformed into format, into what we usually call data maps. So when you move it into this data map, they are now in formats where people can now generate insights people can now move from 0 to 1, so to speak, from. So that is how companies usually do it half of the time. So on the data mart, you can now build fancy stuff on it. I like to use the word fancy because building intelligence is really fancy, so to speak. So for example, some of the things that I mentioned around recommend a personalizing experience. So you take a user as an example, you take that user, you take all the activities they've done, you find a way to transform those data in a way where it makes sense, and you can now use what you've been able to gather around that user's activity to now personalize their experience on the platform. So there are different other things that are involved in the different steps, but on a high level, that is the different steps that you need to take. So to just recap everything I've said around this is, first step is to move data into a separate repository. The second step is to transform the data into meaningful format. Then the third step is to find a way to put this data in front of decision makers for them to derive the real business value that is needed. So that's the answers how things are done.
Amazing. Gather the data, transform the data, and present it in a form where decision makers can understand and can make decisions that would impact business value. Amazing. Okay, so for people looking to go into data science or anything data related, can you just walk us through some tools and technologies that power your data science workflow?
So what powers? So there are different tools and technologies that can be used. There are different ways one can go about it. I like to just walk us through things from step 1 to step 2. So the way I mentioned, the way I explained moving from raw data to real business value. So I'll use that to just explain what a typical workflow would look like. So the first step is going to be building out the data repository that I mentioned. So we call this a data lake. This is where you land. So you move the data from your source systems, you land it into a data lake. There are different technologies that applies, but most organizations today leverages AWS S3. So you can use AWS S3 as your data lake where you land your raw data. Then you build a query engine on it, which will serve like as a data warehouse. So a query engine, something like an Apache Doris, can be used for a query engine. So this is what, so other alternatives that can be used for things like this will include Trino, Snowflake. Those are tools that are in that class of technology, or in that class of tools to be used for the query engine. Then the next thing is, how do you move those data from the source system to this data lake and the data warehouse? So that is where you can introduce Spark. So a Spark engine can help you handle large data. So once you can leverage Spark or PySpark to handle large scale data transformations. So inside the data warehouse itself, we now have different layers. We have different ways where the data is stored. So you have the raw data format where you land the data in a raw format. Then after you land the data into a raw data format, so we typically call that place a landing zone or the bronze layer. Then from the bronze layer, you move it into the silver layer. So the silver layer is where you've made some transformations, you've cleaned up the data is starting to make sense. You move into that silver layer. Then next, from the silver layer, you move it to the gold layer. So the gold layer is what I was explaining earlier on as the layer where you are able to deliver this data to a business person in a readable format or in a format that's easy to make meaning of. So that powers the data engineering part of the workflow. For the data science bit of the workflow, you can now leverage the data science workflow can now see what we have already. So the language we use typically is Python. Then you can leverage machine learning, you can leverage scikit-learn for your machine learning modeling, to build your machine learning models. And there are a lot of frameworks that you can leverage for that. Then lastly, the last bit I would like to talk about for a workflow, especially on data science led, is the ML flow. So you use the ML flow for your model tracking, model versioning, model deployment. So why the ML flow is very, very important is there's a lot of experimentations that happen in data science. So you don't want to just keep everything disjointed. So the ML flow helps you track your experiment right from your model training to the deployment bit. So then the last thing I would speak to, I know this is the second time I'm mentioning the last thing, but this is the visualization leg of the workflow. So for the visualization leg of the workflow, when you work with data, people want to see insights. And how do you generate insights? How do you get insights from data? So there are different tools that you can leverage, but I'll speak to a couple of tools that will be general. So for like enterprise tools, you can leverage Power BI, Tableau, and Looker. Those three tools work very well in that instance. Then for open source alternative, Metabase, Apache Superset, those two things can do almost the same things that those enterprise tools can do. So if you are able to pick one of every tool I mentioned at every stop, you will get an end-to-end data science workflow. Then the other thing I will major on here is the language. Python is basically the language for data. So as a data science professional, the one language that you can't avoid learning or mastering is Python. Then with Python, you can now leverage every of these tools and technologies and frameworks for everything that you need to do for your data science. So that explains that.
Amazing. I know for a fact now that I've taken this short mini course from Moshood, I can brag a little bit and throw some lingo about on data science. Just say, oh, do you know Power BI? Do you know? I will just throw some of this lingo around so that people will know that myself I sabi. So
exactly.
It's really good.
Exactly. And they say
Awesome.
If you act like it long enough, you might actually happen slowly.
Awesome. And it's so interesting how data is just influencing several industries, particularly even in marketing. We're seeing it live and direct in terms of influencing decisions, influencing marketing spend, and that's just for marketing. I can see that across different industries as well, and it's super awesome to see the role that data is playing across various industries.
Every industry now has to build some intelligence into it. At the very base level, every industry wants to measure, and the only way to measure is to get data to track. So it's now very, very imperative that even if everybody doesn't become full-fledged data practitioners, they need to have an idea of how data works and how they can, incorporate some things that data analysts, data scientists do into their work.
Amazing. I totally agree on that. Okay, so going to my next question. How would you say data science has influenced product development and innovation, even across sectors, across what we do at Qore and different industries generally?
Okay, so the number one way data has influenced product development and innovation in companies is it has allowed companies to be more proactive. So before now, companies have to first get the data, they need to diagnose, they need to now analyze and all of those things. There wasn't really means of being proactive. So I'll give you examples of these things. Like, let's say for a financial institution or a telecoms company, or most consumer-facing businesses, you have users that transact with you probably on a timely period, maybe every 2 weeks, every month. You analyze these users, their performances, their frequency, how recent they've, and the money they are spending on your business. But everything that you're looking at that particular point in time are things that have happened. So, but with increased capability of data science now, you are not just looking at what has happened. A data scientist can come, take that same data you're using to measure and help you forecast probably what will happen in 3 months, in 6 months. Another example I'll give is in like industries that like maybe supply chain industries. With data science, they're able to forecast the supplies, the demands, the supplies, and it helps them plan accordingly over time. The other bit to it too is there's one bit of data science that people don't really like see it as data science, or people don't understand what's happening with some of those things. Is building better user experiences for users. With data science, you're able to build better user experience for your users. So how does this happen? So how this happens is, to personalize your customer's experience, you need to have a proper data science workflow to do this. So that's one of the ways it has influenced innovation of businesses, because now they are able to do better jobs at personalizing experience. They're able to do better jobs at taking care of the customer. Because let's say for customer churn, for example, if you can see that this customer is going to leave in 3 months, you are able to be proactive. You're able to listen to that customer more. You're able to engage the customer at the time that they need you to engage them. It's not that after my account has gone dormant or after I deleted the app, that is when you want to engage me. As at the time when you are saying that my usage has been reducing, nothing is happening at that point in time. But these are some of the things that data science helps you to do. And also another bit, the last bit to it is, with increased capabilities of data science and AI, some manual processes that people had to do before can now be done with increased intelligence and increased capabilities of AI. Some of it include things like transcription of papers, to, for example, in organizations that has a lot of paperwork. Digitizing some of those processes just increases their time to product, time to development. For example, in KYC processes before, you have to upload documents. Somebody has to sit down behind those documents, has to look through those documents one after the other. So it takes probably people 2, 3, 4 days or even weeks to open an account, for example. But with increased intelligence, you can automate the entire process of getting the ID, extracting all the details from that ID, sending it to a system that confirms the details, sends it back. Those are the ways that data science has influenced product development in most organizations. And another thing that it does is it has reduced the amount of work that needs to be done for people to get started in businesses. Like, typically before, you need a lot of hands for some kind of operations, some kind of activities. But we increase the capabilities of AI and data science. You just need experts for the most part to help you handle most things and the likes. Then the last bit to it as well is it has helped organizations become more data driven, whereby a lot of things are now much measurable. So with this, you're able to identify pain points early. You're able to validate your concept very early. So it also enhances features in the sense of, like, you can track usage patterns and you can quickly see what works, what doesn't work, compared to what was obtainable in previous years. So I think it has increased basically both the life of the consumers and the business itself.
Amazing. It's so beautiful to see how data can help across different touch points of businesses, just business value. You've spoken about how it can help with customer experience. You've spoken about how it can even help in terms of revenue. I mean, if I'm forecasting for my business or saying, oh, okay, this is the amount of revenue, or the financial guys are trying to draw up a budget based off of the current number of users, it's easy to be able to say these are the active users, these are people that are actually using the app, as opposed to people that just have it on their phone. You are able to predict the propensity for a person to still stay using your product over a particular point in time, which is absolutely brilliant. Okay, so all these things are great here, but this particular question, Moshood, this next question I'm going to is one that I am personal, like I take it personally, because I would really love to hear your take on this. How would you say we've established that, okay, data is good, it's great for us to get data for product development and what have you, but how would you say organizations can balance data innovation with privacy and regulatory compliance? What exactly is the definition of data privacy, and how do you see organization balancing innovation, the need to meet customer needs and demands, with privacy and regulatory compliance today?
This particular question is a question that is in the heart of everybody, even data practitioners, businesses that have to leverage data for a lot. So I'll just start by just answering the first question, which was like, how do you define data privacy? So data privacy is like the protection of individuals' personal information and making and this comprises of how you are collecting that the user's information, how you are using it, how you are storing it, and are you also letting them know that you are collecting this information? So it's multi-layered in the sense of should you be collecting some information from users? It's not enough that you're just informing them you are collecting it, but do you actually need to be collecting this information? So speaking to how to balance innovation with this data privacy, so it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem, which is, the typical chicken and egg problem is which comes first, is it the egg or is it the chicken? So this leads back to the question I like to ask people, which is, every user today wants personalized experience. A company cannot give you personalized experience without getting a bit of data from. So where do we go from there? You need to give me your data for me to give you personalized experience. You don't want to give me your data, but you want me to provide personalized experience. So, but the only way to balance it is to just make sure, number one thing is you need to, whatever data you need to disclose it to the user. So a lot of companies have been flagged over the years for creatively working around ways of getting data without disclosing it to these customers. Some companies will have had issues where their terms of agreement were very ambiguous, that while at the same time they can claim the user, they let the user know, the user can also claim at the same time that they didn't know that was what they mean. So it has led to a lot of talks over the years, and bad actors have leveraged some of this information over the years. So some things that companies do and we also do is, one is first to understand the importance of these customers. At the end of the day, the customer is the lifeblood of the business, so you need to protect them as much as possible. So one is to build privacy and compliance considerations into your entire data framework. So in data, there is something we call data governance. So you need to have a data governance framework that handles or that covers a lot of these things. So data governance is usually not done explicitly by the data team. It involves legal team, compliance team. So it has to capture every single form of regulatory compliance you can think of. Also, because of in recent times, there's been a lot of data issues, especially around data privacy. There are now improved regulations that businesses need to make sure they are complying with all of the operations. In Nigeria, here we have the NDPR. In Europe, there is the GDPR. And so it is just to make sure that, yes, you are keeping everything you are doing within the context of regulatory compliance. Then there's another bit to it, which is the fact that something is legal, it doesn't mean it is ethical as well. So that is the other bit where, as a business, every business needs to now look at it like, even though we can do this, but should we be doing this? Then on a personnel level, like on a low level thing, there are other ways whereby you can protect your customers more. So some of the other ways you can protect your customers more, even though you are taking this data from from these customers, there are ways you can make sure that you're protecting them, where like you can minimize the data. There is also the anonymization, whereby I can get your data, but if anybody has access to that data tomorrow, they can't link those data back to you. So in those instances, even in cases of data leakage or data leaks or hacks, you would have scenarios where though the data is out there, but nobody can really map it back to you. So for us at Qore, majorly what we've done is just make compliance part of the innovation process rather than like an afterthought. So we have the information security team, we have the legal and compliance team that makes sure, and we also have like a standard legal procedure around working with customer data in the organization. So we make sure that we can move quickly while still maintaining that trust that our clients and customers need, so to speak. So that's the only right way to actually balance innovation and privacy, so to speak.
Awesome. Okay. I totally hear you on that part. And it's a perspective that we really hear or we really hardly talk about, and that's the part of if a customer wants personalized services, they also need to be willing to let go of their data to a certain degree to be able to create products that suits them personally. And just one thing that you rightly also said is that part of, yes, truthfully, some organizations put measures in place to ensure that there is consent from the users in terms of, okay, yes, you consented to your data being used, but oftentimes I'm a user, I'm a typical user as well. I do not take time to read all those agreements, all those what have you. It's more of like, let's just tick this box and move on to the next step most of the time. And the company, on the other hand, will claim, oh, we did our due diligence, we provided you with every single thing, but it's on your own hand. You didn't read through the legal agreement of what you, in quotes now, signed or ticked the box for. So I totally hear you on that. This has really been an insightful conversation. And I'm going to ask my next question, which is on this elephant in the room called AI. I mean, it's also a large part of the whole data conversation. The fact that AI is literally driving several industries, driving effectiveness at work for certain industries and business roles. In terms of data, are there any emerging trends or technologies that you're looking to explore, or that you're seeing that on the horizon is going to really change how data science is going in Africa and the world?
Yeah, so basically in the last couple of years, AI has been the forefront of innovation across board, like all over the world. So I am particularly excited about the possibilities, and probably most of the smartest people in the world right now are working on even improving those possibilities. So, and even at Qore, we're excited at what we can do, especially in the financial service space with AI. So some of the things we have been looking at basically has been around using large language models, which is what we today call AI. So for example, ChatGPT, LLM, Cloud, Gemini are all being powered by large language models. So some of the emerging trends or some of the things that excite us is how the potential of those models in financial services. So we've already started using some of it in the organization to like improve some of the processes We already have like an AI powered bank statement analysis where we are using AI to analyze bank statements. Also, some of the other things that we are looking at as well is some of the back-end processes, some of the other things that financial services provides or offers. How can we build intelligence into those things with AI? On the other end, some of the things we are looking at too is real-time analytics. So real-time analytics has been around for a while, but it hasn't really been that efficient. There are newer tools and technologies that's been in that space for a while now. So we are investing into that to see how we can process instant insights and not just like delayed or batched insights. So, but speaking to the AI bit that you mentioned, I totally agree that AI, for now, AI is the main focus of everybody. Even your users want to know what you can do for them with AI. So it's an exciting space. We have a couple of things in the pipeline, a couple of AI-enabled services and products, and very soon enough it will become user-facing, and we can speak more about it at that point. But the combination of these latest technologies, like, it can actually change how banking systems, how banking operations work. Because by the time we move from static systems, which is what we mostly have today, even though they are digitized systems, but they are static, like it's a case of pressing one button and leads to the other, and that's just it. If you're able to move from their static systems to like truly intelligent platforms that like continuously learn and adapt, like right now, nobody can really still tell what the future will look like at that point. So it's an exciting time, and I always say it. I would love to say it here too as well. We are living in the best time ever, so we are in for the ride.
Amazing. We are living in the best time ever.
Yeah.
Quote Moshood Adekunjo 2025. Amazing. And I totally agree with that. I totally agree. I mean, it's like all things are ready and the possibilities are endless, even in the coming future. Yes. Thank you so much, Moshood. This has been an exciting conversation. It has really been an exciting and insightful conversation. And I'm definitely certain that members of our audience who have listened into this podcast have gleaned one or two things in terms of converting real data to real value. It's not enough to gather data or have access to a mountain load of data. In that sense, there is money in data management and in the data workflow system in itself, but it takes knowledge to be able to fine-tune and transform, like you rightly said, it into intelligible decision that can now be used to transform businesses. Thank you, Moshood, and I trust that when we call you again, you will definitely come again and again.
No, definitely. You've been a great host, and this is
thank you, Moshood. Moshood is the first guest that has complimented me as a great host, and I'm really delighted about this. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in on this episode of the podcast. Till we come your way again, remember to be courageous and remember to keep being amazing. Bye, everyone.